Welcome back to Learning and Stuff with Hoyt and always his sidekick, Langle. Happy to be back. We are going to be talking about some history, some stuff, and having fun along the way.
Yes,
Let,
yes.
let me throw my screen up there. Anything you want to talk about while I get ready, Hoyt?
Well, it looks like you're about ready to go. I'm excited to talk about your civilization today that you decided to become an expert on. And now all of our students are going to become experts, and you are going to share your knowledge with me, right?
Of course, of course. As always, I expect class participation. Unfortunately, Hoyt, you are class today.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Langle.
But if you notice, Hoyt's got a nice theme on his background. You can see lovely gold bars.
Mm-hmm.
Because the country we're going to today, we'll throw back, is Mali and their famous leader, Mansa Musa. So right there, if you can see my mouse wiggling around it, is the Empire of Mali. We are in Africa today. So I say gold, I say rich, wealthy, because that is basically the theme of our prestiged emperor, I suppose we can call him, Mansa Musa, one of the richest men to ever live.
Okay, I got a couple quick questions, Mr. Langle.
All right.
What is an emperor?
Ooh, emperor. That's one of those terms that we always like to discuss. It seems in the past we've had some confusion. I like to think about it as a king, but with a lot more land. So a king is sole ruler of a small area. An emperor is the one person in charge. They are top dog. They are the leader of the country, but they've taken over other parts of the world and have expanded further and further. Basically, they are the sole ruler of a large area.
Okay. So the emperor that you're talking about would be the emperor of the Empire of Mali, huh?
Exactly, exactly.
Okay. And then one more question. Can the students see us right now?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
Is that it?
Oh, one more question. Is Africa a country or a continent?
Ooh. It is a continent, not a
Ah,
country.
thank you for clarifying.
As you can see by all these lines, there are a lot of different countries in the continent of Africa.
Ah, thank you, Mr. Langle.
Thanks for the great questions there, Hoyt. And so, diving in, whoops, let's look at the geography of Western Africa. Like I said, as you saw from that last map, it was somewhat near the coast, but we have the Sahara Desert. You probably heard about this desert before. Very hot, very dry. You have the Niger and the Senegal rivers. They are very prominent rivers that flow through the country of Mali. You have plateaus, and as you can see by this picture, it is flat. There's no mountains, there's no hills. It's pretty much just giant plains, wide open spaces, and it's a desert. Now, Hoyt, would you like to live in a desert?
Um, Most people wouldn't, but I'm kind of weird, so yeah, I would like to live in a desert. And I mean, even just looking at this image, I'm thinking like Lion King and plus I like the desert areas around here, High Plains Desert. So yeah.
Okay, fair. But normally, what's the climate like in a desert?
Dry, inhospitable, not very much vegetation. Uh, does that sound about right?
Sounds about right. I mean, the Sahara Desert is this giant desert in Africa that just kind of like provided protection. Like, you don't want to just go walking across the desert. And especially at this time period where they're around about the 13th, 14th century, you're not walking across the desert fast. You need to know the trade routes. And so Mali was pretty much protected from invaders because of the Sahara Desert.
So you're saying that I wouldn't want to take my army across the desert to invade you.
No, you don't. I mean, you can try, but you're going to die of thirst, starvation, probably get heat stroke before you even reach close to my country.
Good to know.
Yeah. So Mali was pretty safe. Natural barriers are great protection. So let's kind of dive in to the lovely culture of Mali. So officially or historically, Mali is considered to be around from 12 or 1235 CE to 1610 CE. So remember, there's common era. So they were around 800 to 400 years ago. So this is pretty recent in the world of history, especially when we get to BCE or BC early or later in this year. So, like I said earlier, they were an empire. Their emperors were called Mansa. So think of it as a title. Is Mr. my first name? No, it's a title, Mr. Langle. Here, it would be Emperor so and so, but they used the word Mansa instead. So if you remember by the title, Mansa Musa, his name was Musa, his title was the Mansa. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Perfect. They, the emperors, had the country convert to Islam. They were a Muslim practicing faith, and it is still very big to this day of the area. Every emperor was Islamic in faith, and they never actually forced people to convert to that religion in their country. So they had not religious freedom per se, but they were given the option to choose for themselves. However, Islam is the major one of the region. And if you look through Africa's history, a lot of Islam missionaries went there. And finally, they have a caste system, just like basically every country, every civilization that ever has. There is a pecking order of who is top dog, who is bottom rung. As you can kind of see by the side picture here, we have rulers at the top. The emperor is always going to be top dog, no matter who they are, what they do. They are in charge. They have all the money, all the wealth. They are in charge. Right below them are the emperor's friends, the other rich people of the civilizations, the people who make the emperor look good, basically the nobles. Here you have the judges and administrators, so basically other high-profile jobs, ones that everyone kind of like strives for. If you think about it today, the ones where you go to school for a very long time, those are the high-paying jobs, the ones who make a lot of decisions in the country. And then you have artisans and farmers. Now, if you look at it, they're like second from the bottom. However, they were very well respected. Their importance was huge to this country. Why do you think farmers are so important there, Hoyt?
Um, they must place high importance on food.
I would say so.
So, I mean, you got like the benefit of survival. You got to eat to live, right? And then, food, a large portion of food can be like a valuable resource as well. You can kind of feed like, a small city and then like help with the surrounding areas too.
Exactly. You can't you can't grow as a nation if all your people are starving. You can't become very rich and wealthy like Mali did if no one wants to work because they're hungry. So the farmers who used the two rivers that flowed through the country very well, they were able to provide that food, provide that expansion, and allowed them to really grow as a country. Then at the bottom, as always, are the slaves. Remember, slavery looks very different in ancient history than in what United States history, but they are still at the bottom. They are still not really having any rights.
And I just want to mention really quick this sort of system of how people kind of the pecking order in society. We're going to be talking about it a lot throughout class, and we'll be referring to it as a hierarchy for the most part. And sometimes when you hear the word caste system, it's caste system typically refers to kind of a dated way of viewing that pecking order, as in like having to do with the color of your skin as well. Like in India's caste system, it has to do with your skin color in particular, a different type of social hierarchy as well. So I was curious, did the color of your skin matter in Mali?
Not as much. I mean, if you think about it, the farmers, the artisans, the ones who are working outside with their hands every day, they're
Mm-hmm.
going to be in the sun. So they'll have a darker tone of skin. The
Uh,
nobles, the rulers had a lighter skin tone because they were like in the shade. They weren't outside being getting sunburned every day. So it definitely showed, but you also have to remember this is deep in Africa. They did not have a lot of outsiders visit, so they all had a very similar skin tone. So it was just basically based on how tan you were, how much sun hit your skin, how much did the pigment in your skin change. Getting some science here, so you're welcome, class.
uh-huh.
Um, and basically, the lighter skin tone meant that you didn't have to work outside in the heat. So you definitely looked more noble and rulish like that.
Um,
All right. So, economy, because I've been mentioning that this is a very rich country and we got to learn where they did. So, they had the Sahara trade basically all to themselves. Like I told Hoyt earlier, he can't take his army across the desert to invade my country. But I, who know how to get out and through the desert to find the oasis, those ponds of water, those rivers that are there, to find the quickest path through the like a very dangerous area and trade goods with it. So I was able to cross the desert with gold, salt, ivory, slaves, and so much more, and then trade, sell it to people in Egypt, sell it to Southern Africa, sell it to the people in Carthage and Spain and all those areas. So basically, Mali was sitting on a huge deposit of gold. They could dig and mine for gold for days, and they were just getting gold bar after gold bar after gold bar. They were getting very wealthy with gold. And like we said, gold's a rare item, and that's why it's very, very wealthy. Another thing was salt. As you can see by this picture um, in the bottom here with the guy sitting there, those are blocks of salt. So imagine if you are salting your fries or something at the dinner table with the salt shaker, that comes from like a brick. It's a lot bigger. You can just dig it out of the ground. Basically, mining salt is a thing. It doesn't just come in those little fancy salt shakers. It's a legit source of material. In
and
ivory, sorry,
honestly,
Hoyt?
I just wanted to mention really quick about salt. I mean, you think of it like at your dinner table, like you're saying, and you might not think of it as a valuable item, but we're talking in these days when salt was used to preserve food as well. Salt was a very valuable item. So yeah, like kind of right up there with gold, honestly, just used for different things.
Exactly. And then there's ivory. Now, I'm not sure where we're at on ivory. Wait, what is ivory?
Ivory. Ivory is associated with the color white. No. Ivories are a naturally forming material on animals such as elephants. And unfortunately, the demand for ivory causes an ivory trade that necessitates that you kill a bunch of elephants for their tusks. So these days, the ivory trade has been limited a little bit more. It's still very valuable, but it's more frowned upon. But back then, in the times of Mali, I feel like the ivory trade was not frowned upon,
Yep.
and it was just a valuable item. You could carve little statues out of it to make valuable trinkets. Artisans would have been doing that. And it was similar to gold as a decorative sort of thing.
Oh yeah, very valuable resource. You had to attack an elephant to get their tusks. So it was a very dangerous thing to get, especially in the 1300s. So today, like you said, it's basically illegal to trade ivory, or you have to have very special permission. Elephants are on like endangered lists, so they're very careful with killing them. So today, ivory is not like you can do other things with or you can get the same result with other things that aren't endangering other thing or the animals. So ivory here was very, very valuable. And as always, in this time period, selling slaves was a very profitable choice. We all know slavery is a terrible practice, but Mali made a lot of money from selling people into slavery.
Yeah, slavery in world history is just kind of a fact of life. And there were a lot of prisoners of war in the conflicts throughout history, and that's where a lot of the slaves came from. So then they were just traded off at that point and worth quite a bit of money.
All right. Now, let's get into the richest person to ever walk on Earth.
Richer than me?
Even you, Hoy, I am so sorry to say your teacher salary is a little less than what Mansa Musa made in his lifetime. Well, um, his value is about 400 billion in today's US dollar. 400 billion. You could buy basically everything and still have money left over. He became emperor, he became the Mansa, and once you're emperor, you control everything. So, under his control, every dollar, every gold piece, every cent that Mali made was Mansa Musa's until he gave it to someone else because he wanted to or because he was trading with a different country. So that's where his wealth really grew. In 1324 CE, he decided to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca. Now, this is part of the Islamic faith where you would go to Mecca, where the faith was started, pray there, witness different religious rites and events. And so he decided to go on this pilgrimage in 1324. And as all emperors do, as all extremely wealthy people do, they want to show off a bit. So he literally was like, all right, I'm going to take, he had a huge entourage. Now, if you see me with my crew, my gang, it's like 3 or 4 teachers. He had hundreds of people coming with him, and they all had camels whose only job was to pull huge carts of gold just because he wanted to show off. Now, I kind of think of Aladdin. If you think of Aladdin's entrance into Agrabah when he's Prince Ali and that whole genie sings the song, if you haven't watched it, definitely do. But there's just camels of gold, lavish parties. It's a big spectacle event, and he is basically saying, "Look at me, I'm super wealthy." He decided to stop in Egypt. Makes sense. It's from where Mali was to where the Mecca was. It makes sense. He stops in Egypt, and they spend so much gold that the value of gold in Egypt actually decreases for the next 12 years. Boy, what do you think I mean by that?
So you're saying that something that was valuable because it was more rare and beautiful, obviously,
Mhm.
decreased in value because there was just so much of it. You like had a sudden influx of it, and suddenly, like you're flooded with gold in your city. The value of gold in the surrounding areas just kind of drops because there's so much of it that everybody has it, and the demand goes down.
Exactly. There was so much gold in circulation, no one thought it was rare anymore. It was just common to have it. And so on his pilgrimage, on his trip, he brought back a lot of ideas. He brought back architecture ideas, agriculture ideas. He brought back new ways of doing things. And when he died in 1337, he left Mali in a very, very good place. It was still wealthy. They were growing because they brought in new ideas, but his son took over and he died. So yeah, the son took over and they moved on without him. So the richest person in history is Mansa Musa because he had gold galore. He could ruin other countries' economy by spending money. All right, let's go from then to now. Unfortunately, we're doing these are quick videos, or Langle and Hoyt's version of quick videos. Africa was part of the race to Africa. European countries wanted to expand their empires and wanted to expand their influence because remember, at this point, land equals power in the 16, 17, 1800s. The French were the ones who took over the area of Mali. Mali was, at that point, was a lot smaller country. Their civilization kind of started to crumble because outside borders started to have arguments. The people were unhappy. You'll see it time and time again throughout history. Once the civilization starts to decline, the problems really start to come. Today, Islam, what?
Oh, I was just gonna talk about, the whole race to Africa. I was just gonna mention like early 1900s. Early 1900s, big race to Africa, large convention with the European countries deciding to like split it up. And that's why there's just kind of arbitrary lines dividing up these random countries in Africa as the European nations that were colonizing all around the world. Just kind of carved up Africa, and the French got the area that Mali were in, of course. And yep, this is why our videos go longer, is because I always feel like I have to interject. Sorry.
We know too much, Hoyt. We just know too much. Islam is still the main religion. French is actually one of the main religions spoken in the area because of the huge influence they had in the early, like you said, 1900s. And I put this on here, Timbuktu. It's a place you probably used as a joke. It's a place you probably hear all the way to Timbuktu. Well, it's a legit, real place, and it's in the country of Mali. And indicated by these pictures here, it has some cool-looking buildings. And as always, you got to cite your sources, because if you're not, you are stealing someone else's work. So that is Mali in a nutshell. Unfortunately, we can't go deep diving, but hopefully you learned something and had fun doing it. Laters.